Welcome to this issue from the Blue Sustainability and Society Initiative. I'm very pleased to be joined by young Rae Choi, who is Associate Professor of Global and Sociocultural Studies at Florida International University. And BSSI is very pleased that Rae is part of our advisory board as well. I wonder if we could start off with maybe just a brief abstract of some of the themes that you're interested in.
About my interest. Of course, so I'm not a historian. I'm actually a geographer, and I kind of consider myself at the intersection of political ecology, marine geography, and environmental geography. And as such, I think my work has been quite interdisciplinary, um, crossing over the fields of not only geography, but anthropology, science, and technology studies, and of course, history. My primary interest has been at the intersection of coastal development and conservation, especially in the geography context of East Asia. So, for a very long time, I've been interested in specifically in the topics of land reclamation and also the conservation of coastal wetlands, especially tidal flats. I've been mostly focused in South Korea, but my interest also extends to other East Asian countries like China, Japan, the Philippines, um, and also like globally.
Mm.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. I believe that you've recently been in South Korea doing some field work. Does that relate to those themes that you outlined?
Yes. So I was in South Korea for about a month. So I just came back. For a long time, my research has been on tidal flood conservation, but I'm actually starting a new research project too, which is about climate change or more broadly, rapid marine ecological changes. And my field site is Jeju, Korea. It's the southernmost island of the country. It's pretty big. It's very beautiful too. Has a lot of histories, but also at the moment is undergoing very rapid, unexpected ecological changes under the sea. And I was wondering about why and how these changes take place, and also how these changes are changing the relationships between the people and the sea. And
Mm.
this time specifically, I went to the southern part of the island, which is called Seogwipo, and I met environmental organization called Paran. So it's an organization dedicated to the health of the sea, especially in Jeju. And I joined the coral monitoring um, team of this organization where there were lots of people joining and diving into the sea. I didn't dive with them, but I was kind of making an observation before and after the diving, and I interviewed some people there, and that was a very inspiring research, I believe.
Mm. And you mentioned that that region has a strong history. I wonder how and if you're incorporating those histories into the more sort of contemporary work that you're doing.
Mhm. Sure. Yeah, as a geographer, like even though I'm not a historian, I believe like history is always like an integral part of our research
Mm.
because nothing that we see is out of history. It's always like uh, entangled with like deep stories of each place. And this Jeju Island in particular is, as a lot of people know, has in fact has a very long and deep history of ignorance, but also violence.
Mm.
So I kind of try to understand how history and ecology are intertwined to each other. So
Mm.
one of the things that I kind of was quite surprised this time was so I went to this southern part of the island. It's a beautiful place, and there you can see the Hala Mountain. It's the big mountain on the central part of the island, and there you see that it's just breathtaking. It's so awesome, like amazing, and it's full of green. You don't really see much presence of people, but it turns out that it's actually an outcome of a very brutal and violent history
mm,
that goes back to the 1948 and 49, the Jeju April 3rd incident, which a lot of people, especially a lot of historians, like know better than this incident. And that was when even before the Korean War, when the South Korea was kind of established as a new country, and the people in Jeju were sort of against the idea of having an election just for the southern part of the country because they wanted a reunified, I mean, not reunified, but unified Korea. So it happens that after the election, the new president kind of thought that these people in Jeju were insurgent. So they sent troops, um, and a lot of people were killed, especially those in the mountain sides. So that kind of breathtaking scene that you see now in Jeju, where you don't really see much human presence, is because they were evicted. A lot
mm.
of villages were burned down and never came back. People were killed, so that kind of violent history is like deeply, deeply ingrained
Mm,
in the landscapes, in the ecologies.
mm.
And so history I would say it's a very important part of how I interpret ecologies and the relationships that people make with ecologies.
I wonder if we could sort of keep to the history point, but zoom out slightly. Because in some other parts of your work, I'm thinking on land reclamation. You've in China, you've written on how um, history has been sort of rewritten. I think you cite someone who says it's been unmapped as a means
Mm,
to create narratives of sustainability, as a means to garner support for projects like eco cities.
yeah,
And I wonder
right.
if you could speak more broadly on the both positive and negative uses of history within sustainable development.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, if in Jeju, I'm more interested in how ecology and history are intertwined and how that kind of create certain um, mood and certain relationships. Um, then um, to think more about my other project on tidal flood conservation, for example, you're right that history has been used as a tool too, to justify further development.
Mm,
And I think a lot of the time these days, you cannot just develop, right? Like conservation, like environmental concerns, sustainability, they should be part of the concerns. But then coastal development projects such as land reclamation are essentially destructive.
mm,
And it also causes loss of human and, like non-human cultures and lives. It's so inherent. But what these like development projects these days do um, is that I think they historicize such destruction and loss, but as a way of, I would say, avoiding responsibility
mm,
because they are the ones, the developers are the ones who are destroying um, such landscapes and lives, cultures, traditions, a lot of things. But um, historicizing such stories and landscapes and matters, I think they are trying to keep themselves a distance from the scenes, the actual scenes of destruction and loss, and make them as history, like
mm,
nothing to be celebrated. The loss that we memorialize and celebrate. And I think that's very hypocritical.
mm,
So that's a negative use of history, I think. On the other hand, I think history also does a positive role um, in terms of remembering what was there, what's been there, make those places subject to reclamation, not empty, but as full of things.
Mm,
So if the development side kind of tries to render things silent and empty, as if nothing really existed before, or things were already lost, that there's nothing to save anymore. I feel that those who are defending tidal flats and other natures under pressure and subject to destruction are trying to say otherwise,
mm,
again, by bringing histories, by telling people how many stories there have been, how crowded and noisy this place used to be, and it's still.
mm,
So that would be a positive use of history.
mm. And yes, I think that's really interesting. You can do a lot on both human histories, but also, I suppose, animal histories, and
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, non-human. I suppose in the final part, I'm interested in your approaches to, I suppose, space and scale, because I think your work um, sort of defies perhaps normal boundaries, um, and very much builds on spatial terms on the intersections of places. And I suppose my question is, what draws you to researching on these different types of spaces?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think my answer might not be that of a typical academic who kind
Mm,
of came from the education side and then found something interesting to study. But before I kind of became to consider myself an academic or even like a graduate student in geography, I worked in marine conservation for several years.
mm,
And that's when so I think it actually like begins from my undergrad years when I was a member of a student environmental organizations. And that's when actually South Korea's largest reclamation project was being contested. So it was a very strange times. And I think I was like naturally drawn into such issues. Then I kind of my first work job was on developing marine policies, and also I was kind of in charge of a marine conservation project of the Yellow Sea Project conservation project. So I naturally met those like people across like China, um, South Korea, and sometimes even like North Korea. And I think I was just really excited to learn about the new things that I was learning about. Like it really opened my eyes to a whole new world that I did not
mm,
know before. So that's how I think I expanded my interest, not only um, to like Korea, but also towards like other East Asian countries and also Yellow Sea. Tidal flats, I think, have always been like my really big interest. But as I learned more and more, I learned new things again. So one thing about these like transitional phases between the land and sea is that nothing is really fixed,
mm,
right? So every time you visit there, you discover new things, and they're so exciting. Like there's nothing to be dull about, like there's no dull moment. You just get to see new things, you get to experience new things. I think it has been a constant source of inspiration and insight. So I think that's one way that I've been drawn to these spaces. And I think another is people. Like I um, like gotten to meet lots of people who are making very deep relationships with such spaces, that use such a space for a living, but also have such affection for the living beings that are in this. And as I got to know them, and also as I got to experience seeing the real like vitality. These faces like brimming with vitality and kind of pulsing with life. I think I kind of thought that I want to be with them. Like I want to like keep being with them. There is a Korean word actually that's called uri, and that's very hard to translate. Some translate into loyalty, but it really means like just staying by someone, being with someone no matter what. And I guess that's kind of my thing too, that I want to be with them, and I just want to keep seeing how things change, but also want to make some contributions at least. So yeah, these
Mm.
are like really exciting.
Yeah. No, you mentioned working with some people from North Korea. How do you, I suppose, practically go about navigating that? And why do you think it's important to uh, integrate people from various different national backgrounds into sustainability work?
Yeah, sure. For the second question, I think it's incredibly important to get to know people not in just, like within one country, but across this region, because it's a connected sea, it's a connected oceanic marine space. So if you really want to conserve, let's say, a spotted seal, you see the spotted seal habitats in the South Korean peninsula, like along the islands, but they go and in Liaoning, like northern China, and along the way, they all the way from the South Korea to North Korea and China, and they come back. And I
Mm,
take just one example of a spotted seal, but there are a lot of such animals, um, mammals and fish, a lot of them, and even plants, even like invasive plants. They travel across the region. So if you really want to do something, um, then you need internet integration. It's
mm,
like a must. But
mm,
unfortunately, especially like recent geopolitical moves, have closed the doors so that we don't really speak one another as much as we used to do. Feel very sorry about such a situation. But about North Korea, yeah, interesting experience. So as South Korean, in fact, I'm not allowed to meet with them personally.
mm,
Like without the awareness of the government. So you
mm,
have to report in advance that you are going to meet from North Korea. I've met them in several instances in like international conferences and workshops. And as a South Korean, like I kind of imagined the North Koreans being very different from us. But then I learned that they are not at all different with us, and they have like similar concerns. They were time that I met them many, many, many years ago. I think it was almost 2 decades ago. They were interested in like how to conserve the river, like the coast estuary zone, using much energy. So they were
mm,
interested in learning about some technologies, the damming technologies, and how to protect and so on. But yeah, we made meaningful conversations. I was very time, but like it's such a great time.
mm,
So it's now again like much harder to interact with them. But I would say there are still people who have some special access and they give guidance to North Korea. Some levels of communication are, but I believe we need a lot more with North Korea. And
mm.
yeah, I think we should be friends.